page number 6 in section 8-1 of the study guide and intervention talks about the geometric mean in the right triangles. You can see on this diagram here that triangle ABC, the big one, is similar to triangle ADB, this little one, and is also similar to triangle BDC. Okay, the altitude to the hypotenuse of a right triangle forms two right triangles. Okay, so these two triangles are similar, and each is similar to the original triangle. These two by the hypotenuse creates two triangles that are similar to the big one. Okay, so in order to find the geometric mean, it talks about all of this, but the easiest way that I found is to use the example from the book. Okay, and I've created it here. Here's my big triangle, here's my hypotenuse, okay, and I've called out sections B, A, H, X, Y, and when we add X and Y together, that creates C. Okay, so in order to find H, which is this part right in here, we have to take the square root of X times Y. In order to find B, which is this leg right in here, we have to take the square root of just X, which is this bottom base here of this triangle, times C, which is the entire bottom part of this triangle. Okay, and then in order to find A, we take the square root of Y, which is just this part of this triangle here, multiply it times C, which is the entire part here. Okay, so that seems a lot easier to me than going through all of this. If you want to go through all of this and try to understand it, that's fine too. But this is just going to be my diagram to help me with the sections down at the bottom. Okay, so let's look at number 1. It says find X, Y, and Z to the nearest tenth. Okay, how do I find X? Well, if I look up at my diagram here, X is related to H, so I know that if I take X and then set it equal to the square root of X times Y, which in this case is 1 times 3, that gives me X equals the square root of 1 times 3, or X is equal to the square root of 3. Okay, if you don't know what that is, we'll type it into our calculator. Second square root, okay, 3. That gives me approximately 1.7. Okay, number 2. Now we have to find X, Y, and Z. You can turn this around, turn the paper around so that it looks like your picture, okay? But for our purposes, I'm just going to go from here. I know that X is the same thing as my H here, so I can go X is equal to, now when I look at this, this will actually become my X and my Y when I refer to this picture, even though they're sitting on top. Okay, so we'll take the square root of 2 times 5. That gives me X equals the square root of 10, or second square root of 10, approximately 3.2. Okay, now we go to Y. Y is equal to, now Y in this section refers to B over here. Okay, so in order to find B, we know X times C. So we do the square root of 2 times, and then we need C. So we're going to have to add up 5 and 2. So that gives us 7. 5 plus 2 is 7. Y equals the square root of 2 times 7 is 14. And then we take the square root of 14, and that gives us approximately 3.7. Whoops, approximately 3.7. Okay, and then we go on to find Z. Now Z is this top part here. When we relate it back to our picture here, it is A. Okay, so here's A. Z is the square root of, we want to take this 5 and multiply it to 5 times 2, which is our C. So that is, or 5 plus 2, so that gives us 7. z. 5 times 7 gives us 35. If you don't believe me, 5 times 7, 35. We're going to go ahead and take the square root of 35. That gives us approximately 5.9. Approximately 5.9. Okay. Number 3. In order to find x, we look back at our picture, we see that it's directly related to b. So we take x, we set it equal to the square root of 1. Okay? And then we multiply it times 8 plus 1. That gives us our c. So x is equal to the square root of 9. The square root of 9 is 3. Okay, we go on to find y. Y is directly related to my a. So y is equal to the square root of 8 times 8 plus 1, which is 9. Y is equal to 72. Square root of 72. The square root of 72 is approximately 8.5. In order to find z, we take 1 times 8. Sorry. So that gives us the square root of 8. Okay. Whoops. Second square root of 8, approximately 2.8. Number 4. Start getting a little tricky here. Okay. Now, since we know what our h is here, we can take our equation from up here and try to find our y, which is down here. Okay. So we're going to take the square root of 3 and set it equal to the square root of 1 times y. Okay, now in order to get this y out of here, we need to be able to square both sides. Okay, so that gives us 1y is equal to, and when you square a square root, it gives you that same number that's in there. For example, the square root of 3 times the square root of 3, the square root of 3 times the square root of 3 gives you 3. Okay, so this gives you 3. And 1y is obviously y equals 3. So now we know what y is in here. So in order to find x, we do x is equal to, when we refer back to our picture, we know that that x is equal to our b here. So we're going to take the x square root of 1 times, and then we're going to add 3 plus 1. That gives us 4. X is equal to the square root of 4. Okay, and x equals 2. If you don't know that, second square root 4 gives us 2. Number 5. Same thing. We know 2 is equal to the square root of 2 times x. When we take this, it leaves us with 2x is equal to 4. Divide by 2. X is equal to 2. Since we know x, we can find y. Okay. So y is equal to 2, well, square root of 2 times 4. Y is equal to square root of 8. So if we type that into the calculator, second square root of 8 gives us approximately 2.8. Approximately 2.8. Number 6. X is equal to the square root of 2 times 6. Notice here they give us the entire measurement of this bottom. Okay, so x is equal to the square root of 12. Type that in our calculator. Approximately 3.5. And we go on to find our y. The square root of 2 times, now you have to do a little figuring because you need just this section in here. We know that if we take the 6 minus the 2, that gives us the 4 in here, which is the 4 that we need here. Y equals the square root of 8. Okay, we did that earlier. We know that that equals y is approximately equal to 2.8. Okay, and then we have z. Z is equal to the square root of 4 times 6, the square root of 24, approximately 4.9.